Why extreme weather sticks around. In this series of short videos, Professor William Calvin at the University of Washington in Seattle and I, Roz Mason, at the CO2 Foundation, are telling the story of why we must quickly remove carbon dioxide from the air. Video links at co2foundation.org. Many types of extreme weather are apparently influenced by the Arctic warming. It slows down the polar jet stream, making it loopy, just like a river meanders when it slows down in a flatter landscape. The U-shaped loops can narrow occasionally into sharp, hairpin turns. Ordinary weather systems, those rainy lows and cloudless highs, tend to drift eastward across the continent. They cannot pass beneath the path of the polar jet stream, which is up at a cruising of about 33,000 feet. Usually, the jet stream has stayed far enough north not to get in their way. The jet stream is an eastbound wind of perhaps 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour, following a path that wanders south a little, and then back north, or now, sometimes south a lot, reaching down below the Mexican border before heading back up to Canada. That can block the eastward movement of the highs and lows across the U.S. It's a similar story for Europe. The jet path isn't fixed, but drifts east. The southerly turnaround can take a week or more to go from the west coast of North America to the east coast. But sometimes the drift slows down, and that blocks the highs and lows behind it from making much eastward progress. That's a problem that Arctic warming has made worse. Rainstorms that usually move on in a day's time can now be blocked for days and days, leaving behind floods and mudslides. If a cloudless high cannot move on in the summer months, there is the risk of a serious heat wave developing. Another consequence of a U-shaped jet stream path is it can allow cold Arctic air to drift far to the south in winter and spring. The freeze can kill fruit growing in the orchards of Florida or chill the whole East Coast. That cold tongue of air is a consequence of the Arctic overheating, a seeming paradox that has confused many. The U-shaped path also can allow warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico or the Mediterranean to spread north during the growing season, sometimes causing days of heavy rains that flatten grain crops. Those fields must be plowed under, a total loss of the crop. Sometimes, as the U-shape travels east, the front edge is slowed down, collapsing the U into a hairpin turn. This is a particularly good setup for violent wind and hailstorms. We've been having a lot more of them. So, let's review those 4 surges in extreme weather from episode 2 of this short series, now that you know something about how the jet stream loops can cause them. What makes heat waves particularly deadly is 3 successive nights when it's so hot that people must stay awake, fanning and sponging themselves, but especially drinking enough water so that they can continue sweating. Once sweating stops, usually because in a stupor a person stops drinking enough water, one can overheat enough to stop breathing. Hot nights are what a stalled jet stream provides. About 3 overheated nights in a row is all it takes for heat stroke. A loss of power from too many people conditioning can cause a region's death rate to soar. 7 times more billion-dollar windstorms than earlier. 4 times more inland floods. The stalled hurricanes began with Sandy in 2012. Then Harvey sat on Houston for about 5 days in 2018. We can probably add those odd California droughts after 2013 to the list. The setup for the big, fast-moving fires of recent years. It is clear that the climate surges between 2003 and 2013 2013 have not gone away. Extreme weather is now our big problem, and we must back out of the danger zone for getting hit by more. The best way of doing that is to take the excess CO2 out of the air quickly. That ought to reduce the extreme weather once the Arctic cools down enough for summer ice to stay, once again reflecting most Arctic sunlight back out into space. In the meantime, we need some precautions against the heat waves and agriculture that could deeply shake civilization. There is more at co2foundation.org about sudden hits to agriculture and on how to remove CO2 and cool us off. Remember, tell your politicians about this new threat from extreme weather. They really need to know why we must remove CO2 in a hurry.